prior to the degree work, and this is from the Grange manual, and the master's charge is, the ceremony you are about to witness is to introduce you to the ritualism of the Grange. There is far more to the Grange than ritualism. The underlying philosophy of the Grange is portrayed by the oldest and most successful method of communication known to man, the use of symbols. The staves carried by the steward, the assistant stewards, and the gatekeeper, the working tools of the order, and the capes and blindfolds to be worn by the marching candidates at the beginning of the first degree, are all part of that symbolism and will be fully explained at the appropriate time. The chief objective of the Grange is to build a better and higher manhood and womanhood, and to develop a mutual respect and concern through brotherhood. So welcome to the Grange, as its doors of friendship swing wide to receive you into its membership. And that's from the Grange manual, and it pretty much sets the tone of what's to come.
Well, it's the creation of a character named Oliver Hudson Kelly. And today we would call him an operator. He was a farmer, he was politically connected. He was in Minnesota at the time of the conclusion of the Civil War. President Johnson, when he took office, recruited Kelly to go to the former states of the Confederacy and conduct an assessment of the state of agriculture and food production. Of course, the southern states were devastated. They were flat on their back. The agricultural infrastructure had been demolished. The livestock had been slaughtered off. Buildings burned down. Crops hadn't been planted. It was a horrible situation. But while he was doing this, he got this idea for a club for farmers. But he also insisted in his vision for this thing that it be a secret order, that there be ritual and secret handshakes, passwords, and all of that. And so his idea led to the establishment of this organization. And he brought with him 7 other men, 7 other sort of disciples to pull this together. And by 1867, they had the framework for this Granger movement, which they called the Order of the Patrons of Husbandry. Early on, saw a purpose for the Grange, several purposes. Number one was to do battle against the rapacious behavior of railroads in the upper Midwest, the monopolistic behaviors, which resulted in exorbitant freight rates for the farmers' crops to be moved to market. They also, early on, got involved in what you might call cooperative buying, putting a group of farmers together to negotiate better prices for seed, for fertilizer, for feed for livestock, farm supplies, and also to form cooperatives that would market agricultural commodities that they produced. And then the third dimension, of course, was probably the primary reason the movement got going so well, was the social dimension. And that was the formation of local Grange chapters where people could come together every other week or once a month and have basically social interaction. Because you think of on the prairie country, there was a great feeling of isolation. There was no radio, no television. They might see a newspaper once a month. And getting people together for social engagement became a very, very important part of the Grange. So that was what got it going. The Grange in Vermont got off the ground in a very short order. My research, I found that by 1873, in other words, in less than 2 years, they'd already formed 38 subordinate Granges. That's the term for a local Grange. What we all think of as a Grange is a building or a group gathering in a hall in a small community. They only had 38 chapters up and running by 1873. So 1894 to 1900, a period of about 6 years, 51 new granges were started in Vermont. And in the following decade, up to 1910, 170 new subordinate granges were founded. Membership rose up 7,000 and then up over 10,000. This was a big deal.
Quite a lot of pasture. There's a lane there, and there's pasture over the backside. The heifers go out there, they can go all the way down to the end and around, and then there's a lot of pasture down that way that they have. So there's a lot of pasture land over here.
The overlay of this time, of course, was that the population in rural Vermont was hemorrhaging post-Civil War. And it was true all over rural New England.
They will have calves this fall, September, October. That one there is showing some udder. And so they're ready to go out to pasture any day. Oh, they're ready now, but I'm not quite.
The end of the great agricultural prosperity of the first half of the 19th century, coming of railroads, all kinds of disruptors were at play. And thousands of people were leaving the countryside, abandoning farms. Land that had been cleared at enormous toil was rapidly reverting to forests. And it had a profound psychological impact on people who remained. A period of melancholy settled over the land. And it was manifested in many ways.
Things have changed. Things have changed drastically in my time here. I mean, before the interstate and so forth, it's changed a lot.
Having a grange formed where we can get together and cheer ourselves up, go and sing a few songs, or somebody recite poetry, or have some egg salad sandwiches. This was a big deal.
Come back tonight and feed them again. Growing up, I mean, of course we had no different than any other family, I guess. My father was a rural mail carrier. He carried mail out of the Randolph Center post office. And when he started, there were 2 carriers. And so in the summertime, when the traveling is good, he'd be home at noon or 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And so then we did farm work beyond that. He had a dozen cows, and we did that. And so in school, we'd come home from school, and we always had chores to do, as most families did. You had to feed the hens and get the eggs, or hay the heifers, or maybe it was your turn to fill the wood box, because most places burned wood. And then we'd have some time, for ourselves. And there wasn't as much going on with the school activities. There was sports, but we were never into that too much, or I never was. So the Grange, I guess, was the basis for what we did. Extra, kind of our social part of our life was things that happened with the Grange.
It's always been a family organization, and when we first started going to the Grange, after we were married, everybody just brought their babies, and they'd crawl around on the floor, and sometimes there were 6 or 8 of them there. And then when they got to be 5, they would join the junior Grange, and they met at the same time that we did upstairs, downstairs.
My parents always went to Grange, so they just brought the kids along, and joined junior Grange when I was 5. And I was a member until I was probably 14 or 15.
I remember being a very young little girl and attending a Grange meeting. I can actually remember as a child being so excited on Friday nights because it would be Grange night and we would get to go out, and I'd get to put on the party dress, and I'd get to put on my little black shoes that made all that clumpy noise when I walked around with them. And I was probably the one who was dressed and ready to go first in the house and be waiting for my father to come in from the barn and change his clothes and wash up and be ready to go. And we'd pile in the car and we'd drive the 2 miles down to the Grange Hall, and the car wasn't even warm by the time we got there, but it was a family event.
Lecture, that's me. Chaplain, again, that's me.
It'll have a letter on it, like this one has an S on it.
C is chaplain, and the L is lecture.
They have a meeting downstairs, just like we do, where they have all the same officers, the master and overseer and lecturer and secretary, and somebody takes the minutes. And
Soon the meeting is going to happen. Leah is the lady assistant. Matthew is the steward. It's basically like a costumeless, sceneless play. You know how some plays have the name of the character before every line? That's how I think of it as a play.
Most of the action, like they'll come and they'll open the Bible, they will bring the flag up to the master after we salute the flag.
With liberty and justice for all. I now declare the Grange open and ready for work. Worthy Stewart, inform the gatekeeper.
We started with small parts when we were younger in the Grange, whether it was a little skit, whether it was having to read a part as one of the officers during the meeting. And we tended to start with the younger members having smaller parts and the older members having larger parts. So we would slowly gain the responsibility of more things to say during a meeting, more parts to read, more of the moving around and walking around routine of the meeting. So you slowly grew into that.
The Grange, of course, is an old organization, and it was founded on the basis of the rural farm family and farm home. And its purpose was to communicate and educate.
To follow the advice of my parents and teachers, and will not knowingly wrong a brother or sister of the order. I will try to avoid bad company, intemperate habits, the use of tobacco, illegal drugs, and all intoxicating drinks, and will guard against the sinful habit of taking the name of God in vain. We will help each other to keep this pledge.
As our work is completed, the steward will collect the emblem and see that it is properly secured.
I like the ritualistic part of it. There's a lot of meaning to it. And I would like to see it carried on. And here at Middle Branch, we have carried that part on. I kind of hate to see it lost.
May the blessing of our Heavenly Father rest upon us all.
Amen. The Grange is now closed.
If you guys can help clean up, we'll play our games, because I know they need to set up the tables for sugar and snow.
It's amazing because we have activities, we have a meeting, and we have all kinds of things. We have games. I like the Grange because, I met lots of friends, and it kind of helps the community too. I mean, we make valentines for people on Valentine's, and one time we made cookies for soldiers.
I like coming here because there's food after the meeting, and I get to be together with my friends and family.
All right, you're walking around with one.
The way things are carried on here, it's the whole family that's involved, and the young people keep growing up in it. And Middle Branch Grange has stayed just traditionally that way, and it seems to work. It seems to work.
My mom told me the Junior Grange was one of the last Junior Granges that still meets in Vermont, so I thought that made it special. And when we come here, it's kind of like the Grange is a family member, even though it's a building. Tonight we're having sugar on snow, And we're gonna have donuts. We do that once every year.
Meetings.
Yeah, but that's what everybody from upstairs too comes down to. They're pretty much having the same meeting we did. It's a little bit more official or advanced, but it's a lot like the same things upstairs. They're having a meeting.
And there's always something after the meetings. Every meeting that you do that's fun. They always have a little program or game or something. And then refreshments. There's always the sugar on snow in the spring, the pumpkin contest in the fall. There seems to be always something of interest to do. That's the part of it that I guess I enjoy the most.
To me, it's kind of a social thing. You know, it's a chance to get off the farm and meet with other people with common interests, I guess. I mean, they're the people I've seen since I was born, but kind of a social thing now more than anything.
Came down and notched it and back cut it, but I couldn't get it off the stump. And I had 2 wraps around the tree next to it, so I kept getting lower.
A lot of them are sugarists. They do sugaring part-time. So you always, well, have you tapped yet? Or how much syrup have you made? You know, what do you think this year is going to be? And so forth. It's still a sideline to a lot of the farms here.
Then it fell off the stump finally and went further, right into the 2 wires. It wasn't sparking or anything.
We'll talk agriculture sometimes, or children sometimes, or politics if we're careful.
And so lift the butt so it would, he touched the butt. Oh, the power was going right through the sack.
Kind of feels like Thanksgiving every other week. The meeting is, a structured time when business is done and the ritual is carried out. But afterwards, it's kind of a time to just celebrate friendship and celebrate each other and connect with each other. And I think that that's a huge role that Grange has played over the years, is the socialization.
Absolutely. Pure foolishness. It happens a lot.
For the Granges that are able to last, my guess is that a lot of them have families that continue to come, such as Middle Branch, that they continue to have children and grandchildren who grow and are raised in that community and want to continue on with it.
When we were younger, well, I guess before we was married, we used to have sledding parties afterwards. I had a travel sled and we could slide out. We used to plow the road out beyond the Grange Hall, went up on the hill there, we'd go up around the oxbow and slide back down. We might get home 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. Then they used to have dances down there too, but young people today don't dance like they used to.
That's an in-between one. A lot of those.
Kelly and the others, the founders, basically adopted the Masonic rite, which traces back to Presbyterian Scotland in the 1500s.
The stories about the Grange have come down that it's a secret organization, which in its early days it was. There are passwords and there are knocks at the door.
If you're a Mason and you go to a Grange meeting, you'll be right at home.
When it was first started, Oliver Hudson Kelly's niece, Carolyn, was really quite instrumental. And of course, in those days, women did not have a place in politics or in most organizations. They were home to take care of the children and do the cooking or whatever. Carolyn was very progressive for the times and was influential in seeking the fact that the Grange would include women. It was a family organization. And not only were they accepted in the Grange, the women had a vote from the very beginning of the Grange and were in the Grange as equals to men. Not only were they equals, but they were placed in a higher position in the Grange. There were 3 goddesses set at the front of the hall, beyond the altar. Ceres, the goddess of agriculture, the goddess of grain. Pomona, the goddess of fruit, and Flora, the goddess of flowers.
And in tradition, Ceres would be holding a sickle and some wheat, because that's her representation of her degree, yeah. Pomona holds a basket of fruit, usually a cornucopia of fruit. And Flora, of course, is roses with the flowers.
And these positions can only be held by women, which ensured that there would always be the influence of women in the Grange. The hour of labor has arrived, and the work of another day demands our attention. Let each repair to his or her allotted station. We're the overseer. Are all present correct? We have a number of officers in the Grange. We have the ritual, the degrees. There are 7 degrees in the Grange.
I've been going to meetings since I was just little, and I am so ingrained in it. It's just breathing. Yeah. Well, how do you breathe? Well, that's hard to explain, but you do it.
The first 4 degrees are of the subordinate of Community Grange. The first degree represents springtime, and it's the seasons of the year, springtime through winter. It also relates to the areas of life from infancy to old age. So each degree has a lesson. Springtime and infancy, summertime, fall and the harvest, and winter, a time of relaxation on the farm, and also the time of life where things kind of slow down. Just to give you a little bit of background, business meetings have an opening and a closing in the Grange, and this goes back 150 years. What you've seen. To begin with, to come into a Grange hall, you had to have a password. There was a password at the outer gate and the inner gate, and so that's part of what you've seen here. We don't collect a word in this Grange any longer. It's something that we don't do, but our opening and closing is still pretty much the same as it was 150 years ago. Report of standing committees. Agriculture and environment.
Okay. Interplanting spring greens with spring bulbs and incorporating artichokes or cardoons, whatever those are, into annual plantings.
Cooking contest this year is apple muffins, and you use your own recipe.
In the earliest times in the Grange, the topics for discussion at the meeting, listen to some of these. How much of a man's business should a wife know? We're going to have a discussion about that, all right? What are the merits of a shallow versus deep setting of milk? In other words, get the milk, the cream to rise to the top. What's the best ration for a dairy cow in the 1890s? What about women's rights and women's suffrage? Yeah, we're 30 years ahead of universal suffrage, and they're talking about it in the 1890s. Whether to allow electric cars and autos on the highways. Ooh, we're talking about that now. How can women's work be made easier? In the 1920s, I find them talking about humane dehorning of cattle.
New Year's is coming up. Don't make any resolutions you're going to break. Make some that you will keep. Guess that's it. I came away from the house this morning and left my Grange bags of stuff at home, so I don't even have a joke tonight because I can't remember the jokes that I had on the paper.
Okay, closing the Grange. We're the overseer. Are the labors of the day completed?
They are, Master.
As there is no more work for us today, the steward will see that the implements are properly secured for the night. And this Grange, maybe more than some, the members are from very different backgrounds and You know, Grange is nonpartisan, so we discuss legislative issues, but not partisan politics.
His arm and his arm are going to be tied together. So
Oh, wow.
can only use the other arm.
I mean, the unknown scares a lot of people, and I think that probably kept some people from joining. Masonic work is mysterious. The Grange was mysterious. Today, a non-Grange member can sit in at any meeting. I think what draws people to Riverside Grange is the fact that we are active in the community and we reach out into the community to include people that might not always be included.
Jim has such a look of intense concentration.
Maybe I hold this.
Some Granges, every Grange is different. Some of them are more straight-laced than others. Riverside Grange believes in having fun.
But look at how neat our ends are. This is great.
Yours looks like what my little Thank you.
There's a couple of different things I think that's kept Middle Branch Grange going strong. It's still right here in central Vermont. There are a lot of small farm families still here. It hasn't changed as much in this area as it has in other parts of the state.
Well, I guess I've been a Grange member all my life, and before that, I guess. You want to go to the barn, Haley? Go see the cows? Okay, we can do that. I think we bundle you up. It might be a good thing to do. Huh? The majority of people were Holstein farmers, but the Jerseys have really caught on the last 15, 20 years. So, of course, you get back too many generations and everybody was a farmer and they had 1 or 2 cows, a couple horses, and did self-sufficient living out in the country. So we have a few that aren't Jerseys, but primarily we're a registered Jersey herd.
How we doing? Yeah.
Haley's daddy and uncle built the barn in 2013, 2014, and Joe moved over and brought his cows and Jacqueline, and here we are. We're milking around 130 now. So back in the 80s, before that, they wanted volume for fluid milk. But now they're more into cheese and butter and yogurt, especially yogurt.
It's getting to where, the numbers of farmers are getting less and less. And so it's good to have something for local, farmers to get together and talk about what they're doing on the farms, or even just get together and talk about something completely different and get their minds off of it.
When you're farming on your own, you have no time at all off. So I will feed the calves, clean them off and bed them for the night. We have 2 heifer barns, so we have to do the same in another heifer barn. Wash up the pails, which takes a while. Just little things. I don't have a real important job, but I do the little things. I think the Grange still has a purpose in that it brings people together, especially in this world that's kind of disconnected. People need a place to go and talk and socialize.
Back when the Grange was started, they were farmers, and they didn't go far from home for entertainment. They went to home, to church, and they were involved in the Grange.
We played 88 at the card parties, playing it ever since I can remember. And I have not found anybody else outside of East Bethel that has ever played it before.
It's supposed to start about 8:30. The committee that's sponsoring it that night makes up cards, so they hand out cards to everybody, and sometimes we have 7 or 8 tables, sometimes 5 or 6. But you find your partner, and you play 4 rounds of the 88 game.
If you win, you move to the next table down.
But when you get to the number 1 table, then you keep the same partner.
And you stay there as long as you win.
Yeah.
Keep winning.
I think I played with it maybe 2 years ago, and he and I won every single hand. It was like you can connect with one another on the phones, on the internet. You know, there's less of that. You're so far apart from one another, but there are still good people that would benefit from the community building, the knowing your neighbors, from that idea of just the wholesome nature of the Grange, which is what it is at its core and its essence.
It's something to do in the wintertime. I mean, most of these folks have dairy farms, and they don't get away. They got to, milk cows twice a day, every day. And this is fellowship. Everybody looks forward to it.
You're playing with different people all night, so you're talking with different people all night.
What else are you going to do? Sit home and watch television? So this is kind of nice. And it's at a different home every time.
And it's also funny to see which ones are really serious about playing cards and which ones are just there to socialize. And I'm not a bingo person because that's nothing you can do to change your outcome, but 88 really can. One wrong move.
Oh, crap.
Yeah.
That didn't work out good at all. Oh, wow.
So we'll have maybe 4 to 5 card parties, and then come March, everybody's tapping trees, making syrup, and everybody's too busy. 38.
42.
43.
45.
46.
47.
48.
Go ahead.
48.
He's aggressive.
I do the dirty work. When nobody wants to bid, I bid. I might have nothing. Yeah. I think I've been set twice tonight.
Is that all, Craig?
Yeah.
A little afraid the Grange is going to be lost anyway, because we've lost so many Granges and so many members. And the state Grange is nowhere near as active as it was years ago. It used to support the subordinate Granges. They used to have a Dairy Queen contest. I don't think that they have anymore now. A youth couple, a young couple contest.
The state Grange used to pick a young couple of the year, and I think each Grange would pick a young couple from their Grange and write up a little story about them. They'd pick somebody that was active in the Grange and did a lot in the Grange, as well as in the community.
When we first belonged, they had degree contests, and you would memorize your part for a certain degree. And we even had marches. So you would come in the hall and do a march around, and you would split and make crosses, and a lot of that has gone by the wayside now. I hope it doesn't die out entirely, because I always enjoyed that part of it.
This was the old Grange Hall, now a home, but that was the not original Grange Hall, but that's before they moved into the schoolhouse. We have a ram that may decide to come this way. When we looked at this property, we came up on this spot, and the lady that was selling it had been offered a price from downcountry people that wanted to put a house on this site. And Donna and I came up and said, what a shame if anybody ever built here. And then she told us what she wanted for the farm. And we said, that's out of our price range. And she called us back that night and she said, you're gonna live there. We've got the sheep. We occasionally have a couple steers, pigs. It's primarily for the family use. Come on. Well, they're not sure. They're more interested in eating. A lot of the small family farms, it wasn't for sale, but for the family use, which is basically what we do. We do have the greenhouse. We have sales out of the greenhouse. We do the farmer's market. We do sales from the farm of vegetables. We've sold strawberries. And Katie and Axel are putting in 3 acres of berries and vegetables that they'll be selling this year. So Katie and Axel are using 2 or 3 acres of our upper pasture for a market garden.
And as much greenhouse
And
space,
greenhouse space.
as we can eke out.
It's because of the Grange Farmers Market that we met.
We like the Grange Market. It's different than other farmers markets that we sell at in that it really feels like a community, and it's got a different feeling than the other markets, which are maybe more profitable because they're older, more established markets. But as far as what we take home from it on a personal level, I'll choose this market.
The Grange talks about supporting community events, and we asked for their support, and it was unanimous. Everybody really wanted to get involved, and it's just started from there.
Today's going really well. We've had a really good turnout of our regular market patrons, which is great, and then all the new people from the village, the town, who are here.
This is our 5th annual community picnic. This year it's on the west side of town, and we're using the Grange building.
Special thanks to the Grange for having us here today. We really appreciate their hospitality.
And we also want to thank our music today, the group called the Zookeepers here entertaining us.
I'd also like to thank the race car drivers and their family and friends for being here today, because that is the theme the Historical Society has decided upon. So thank you all for being here. Yes, that's true, and I forgot that, Wendy. Thank you for bringing that up.
When I was born in this little town, most everyone that lived in this town had at least 1 milk cow, 50 chickens laying eggs. They had a big garden, and they were patrons of husbandry. Everyone was.
They let the Boy Scouts use the building, the Historical Society. Just something for the community people to do is important in these small communities.
The Riverside Grange Farmers Market has brought many people to the Grange that knew nothing about the Grange.
We got invited to join the farmers market, and so we're here all the time for that. So they said, you might as well join the Grange. So we said, all right, we'll join that too.
We joined, and then I know there's another family that just joined that's younger, so it seems like it might still be able to pull other younger people in too. So
I think the biggest issue with many fraternal organizations is they're not willing to change. They're not willing to come up with the times. They're not willing to reach out. They become complacent in what they have always done. And sometimes you have to reach out into areas that may not be as comfortable, areas that you've never done before, and be looking for new members.
Lunch was excellent. I've sold eggs, given away eggs. It's been a good day.
I'm not sure in our Grange if things have changed all that much. There's not too many things that we do now that we didn't do back then. It's one of the major fundraisers for the Grange, and they have the chicken pie suppers. Traditionally, they serve probably between 200 and 300, 250 or so.
Food is a big part of the Grange down here. It really is, and we're noted for our public suppers. People come, they don't walk away hungry. And I don't know, I guess maybe farm ladies grow up cooking and enjoy cooking or do a lot of cooking. I don't know. They're certainly good at it, and we enjoy it.
I always think of the way they pulled together was by doing things, not just having a ritual. They do something. People always say, well, how did they build these Grange halls? How did they do that? And I say many of them were built with chicken pie suppers.
We come here probably twice a year for their suppers. We had a choice tonight. There's 3 in the area, and we selected this one. And we've always there's more, yeah, but we've always been very pleased here and glad to come back. And the people that are doing the cooking and the waiting on us are very polite and always make sure you have enough to eat and get the pie of your choice. And we enjoy it.
You'll get a lot of people that, well, you don't know them personally, but you've seen before. They come year after year. They come from Randolph or Bethel or something like that.
I was selling tickets, and they were coming in from down Reading. And he says, "When's the next one? I want to come." So, I mean, it reaches out. Tunbridge, Chelsea.
It takes pretty much all the Grange members, because the chicken pie is served on a plate and the waitresses take it out and give it to each person.
I worked on many suppers. I mean, the women did all the cooking and preparing and put the meal on, but no, the men would come in and do their share as well.
They have 3 men to pour coffee, and they run the dishwasher, and the kids have white tables.
We asked members, of course, to make furnished pies for it, and we have some really nice pie makers.
When everybody is done, they pick up the plates and serve the pie. And they have a play afterwards. That's traditional also.
We actually have a very large tote of plays that have been done here at the Grange Hall for many, many years. And I actually found my grandfather's name and my great-grandfather's name and other members of the Grange who were in those plays years ago.
Rogers over here on the other side. Oh, she was one of the best players that I ever worked with or she ever worked with. Oh, she'd fish you out of a problem and she could set you up where you get all sorts of laughs. And I just enjoyed working with her.
We've tried to find a balance in a way to welcome people and make it open to anyone, but also keep that historical ritualism there. That's what made the Grange what it is in the beginning.
My hopes for the Grange in the future, for all Granges, is that they reach out into the community. Each Grange can tailor what they do in their community. Many of our young people today so desperately want to belong. And so the Grange can fill that need.
Well, the Grange is the one that sponsors it. They pay for the night crawlers and stuff, and I just help them out.
Come on, you stupid slimies. These things are so slimy.
You learn how to tie knots, how to tie flies, and all the legal aspects of fishing. Just basically understanding all the basics of it. And you just pass it on to the kids.
No, Levi, Grandpa, the worm already came off.
Dad.
Levi, you can't run around.
You're having the best ones. No.
Look how huge that sucker is. Not a cactus, ain't you stupid? Hey.
Okay. Well, my mom and dad, they were in it. They were in it for so many years. But when I went, the first few times I went, I thought it was really kind of weird.
When I joined, it was very structural.
Oh,
It
yeah,
was like
yeah.
every person needed to know exactly what their part was, and it was very rigid. So now, today, it's really a lot freer.
In its heyday, of course, the Grange in many parts of the northern United States, in Maine and New England, in rural districts, you couldn't get elected to the legislature unless you were in the Grange or you had the Grange's support. They were very potent.
Of course, years ago, they pushed for rural electrification and all these kinds of things.
They're really sort of the climax period of Grange influence, and that was electrification of rural areas.
And of course, it was a big help to have electricity. And so the Grange promoted that and many things like that in the past.
We can go on and on. RFD, that was a Grange national initiative. Up to 1905, you go to the town, get some grain and some groceries and pick up your mail once a week maybe. RFD, they brought a post office to your door 6 days a week. You can buy stamps, you can send a package. So those were all things that the Grange did. And the list just goes on and on. And the more I delved into it, the more amazed I was at how they just were looking ahead.
The Grange is generally looking for ways to serve the community.
We're pretty much a farming community, and if anyone is in trouble, sick, or something like that, we're always there to help.
The Grange is from the grassroots up, rather from the top down. So each Grange is allowed to do their own thing. I want to welcome everyone here this evening. We think we may have a few more coming, but I think we're going to get started before the food gets cold. We started this a few years ago, having the pound auction to have some fun and to raise money for the food shelf, which is in the basement here at the hall. The total raised last year was a phenomenal $750. So that just gives a little background of what it's been in the past.
I was first involved when I was probably about 4 years old. That's my earliest recollection.
Bid often, bid high. We will get started, and let's, oh gosh, where will we start? Eeny, meeny, miny. Okay, let's do this.
So I feel like it's the younger generation is kind of dispersing and doing a broader range of things rather than the focus on the dairy farm or stuff like that.
You want to smell that, Leo? Oh! Okay.
Well, it's difficult to change your organization to the way the world is now. It's hard to keep an audience of an old-time way of life when that old-time way of life no longer exists.
I have 5 once, twice, sold for $5. Okay, go red, white, and blue. Do I have $1 to get the bidding started? I have $1. Do I have 2? I have 2. Do I have 3? I have 6. Do I have 7? I have 7. Do I have 8? I have 8. Do I have 9? I have 9. Do I have 10? I have 9. Oh, I have 10 here. Sure. Fran started it at 3.
Wait a minute, was that a bag you brought?
I have.
Oh, those stupid cookies.
Animal crackers. They were sitting at the dining room table all week. There you go.
Thank you.
Be sure to share.
We're at a total of $427.50.
$427.50. Okay. All right. I have 13 once, twice, sold for $13 to number 18. Okay. Budweiser. It is.
last one.
$5.90.
$5.90.
$10.
$10.
Riverside is special. Sometimes I don't know what it is about Riverside that keeps us afloat, that keeps us going. We have 71 members now, and that's quite a bit for the Grange in our small community. There's just something about it.
I have 30. Do I have 31?
35.
I have 35. Do I have 40?
40.
I have 40. Do I have 45? I have 45. Do I have 50?
50.
I have 50. Do I have
Every year there's like more and more people from further away that come to this event because it's here, it's fun.
50? Do I have 55?
Well, I worked some overtime this week. 60.
I have 60. Do I have 65? I have 65 once, twice, sold for 65.
I think we keep a foot in the ritual, in the history, in there, but we're also kind of on the modern side, and we're accepting of everybody and everything that goes on. We did $700 this evening with what everybody bid on and additional donations. And maybe that's what keeps us going. I'm not sure what it is. Riverside is just special.
What do you see as the potential for the Grange to continue to not just exist, but to actually perhaps grow?
Well, I think if we can find leadership that's willing to inspire and pull people along and get them in, but it'll be a tough road.
Well, neighbors' nights and getting together for special programs has been something Granges have done for years. And this is the village of Chelsea. And they have a Grange and a Grange Hall here in Chelsea also. They struggle, however, to get enough members out for meetings.
I grieve when I see a Grange Hall closed down because I think about the good times that people had there and the contribution it made to community, pulling people together, building social capital, all of those kinds of things.
We can go in the back door probably.
Yeah.
So where is Riverside? In West Topsham?
West Topsham.
Because I think that's where I went.
You can't describe the Grange in a few simple words.
Oh yeah,
that was all. The Grange ritual talks about the brotherhood, sisterhood of the Grange. It is like family. That piece of the Grange, I think, is so important. Belonging.
That's the biggest thing about Grange is the social aspect.
It wasn't that bad of a house. But who the hell's going to live out there?
I do.
Is there something in particular that you, I don't know, that somehow represents what it is that has kept you involved for so many years?
And what do you like about it?
And what do you like about it?
I don't know if I can pinpoint any one thing.
Where the hell am I going? I kept looking at my
Well, if
directions.
people drive by your house, they're going to say, well, where?
I know.
Actually, I guess the Grange is my social life. It's my community effort. And in a way, the ritualistic work, degree work of the Grange, might almost call my religion, I guess. It's all three of those things kind of combined together.
And I think that's sometimes difficult because there's so much good to the Grange. There's more of a need for community now, I think, than there ever has been. Be able to build a strong community, and that's what Grange is best at. And that ritual is so strong, but I don't know how it is that you blend the two together without sort of, diminishing the beauty of the private and the ritual that is the Grange. I think that's one of the greatest struggles.
I think it's important that at least once a year a Grange look at what they're doing, what they might change so that they keep up with the times and keep the Grange alive. Prior to the degree work, and this is from the Grange manual, the Grange today can be as successful, and I've said many times, the Grange is needed today more than it has ever been needed.
And it is difficult to explain to a non-Grange member what it's all about. And I think people need to see the Grange and get the feel of the Grange to actually know, oh, well, that's what you mean. It is awfully hard to put it into words. It really is.
And that's from the Grange manual, and it pretty much sets the tone